Hello again to another episode of Voodoo People's Devlog, VIPR Factory A5. For those of you who just love listening to me yappin. Oh man, that's a sweet name for it actually. I might call it that from now on. I might call it yapping about mapping. Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna call it that from now on. Welcome to Yapping About Mapping, episode VIPR Factory A5. I'm a little bit out of it today. I've had a really busy last couple of weeks, but I did manage to get this latest version of VIPR Factory playtested, and especially after the disastrous A4 version, I'm really, really happy to report that this map is a lot better. It's so much better, it's honestly hard to describe. For one, there were no embarrassing technical mistakes. Thanks actually very much in part to people in the TF2C mapping community who identified some last minute problems which only affected certain users with like certain graphic settings, which would have just been a total disaster for them and made the map almost unplayable. But we were thankfully able to catch that stuff and get it fixed on time. So thanks, guys. You're amazing, and it's great to have this community as a resource for mapping for this game. Um, yeah, okay, so here's the view of mid, as I traditionally start by doing. You can see that it's pretty similar to the last version. Mid was probably the thing that changed the least, although there have been some adjustments to it. But as usual, I think I'm going to go and start at spawn, so we can sort of walk through the map together and understand the layout and my thinking about it. But first, I'm going to restart the game so that we can actually also look at the setup gate location, because I want to talk about that a bit. Okay, so restart game 1. Here we go. And let's go into no clip. Okay, so we got setup mode going. So we have our spawn room, and as has been a theme in...
Oh, now why is my car parked all the way over there? For your sakes, it had better not be a long walk.
Thank you, Orson. As usual, we have these two doors, control points and escape zone. And of course, if you go to the left, we have the control point. Ah, oh, geez, the setup timer. Can I add time to the setup timer?
Time has been added.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Let's start over. We have two doors, control point, escape zone. Again, the right one is the one you're not really supposed to take. It takes you over to defend your escape zone, which we'll talk about later. The one you're supposed to take is the left one to the control point. And I've talked about this a million times before. This is the blinder thing that I talked about. So that way, like when you come out of this door, it's kind of obvious that you should go that way, and you don't really then see what's over here, because at least on your first run through the game, you should probably be going this way. So you head out this way, and an important thing here, again, in keeping up with this concept of visibility and making sure you can actually see when the enemy team is attacking, you do have a pretty good view of your escape zone. You know, maybe this blocks the car a little bit, but like you'll see the action and the explosions and the shooting and stuff over there if your base is under attack, even if you're on your way towards the control point, which, you know, is being indicated to you very helpfully by this arrow, because, you know, given the difficulties I've had with getting players to go the right direction, you know, I'm just getting desperate, and I'm just putting these big glowing arrows around. Maybe I'm a bit too paranoid about it now, but anyway, so you'll run by this escape zone, and you'll see if you need to kind of reprioritize and go over there, but normally you go up this ramp, and you come down this drop down, which I'll talk about my use of drop downs later, because that was also a very big success I found. And then you're presented with this view here, you know, control point, and you can go over this way, but that just takes you back to the escape zone, and even if you look here, the arrow's telling you to, you know, go back this way. And you go into this little room, which I just called the transition room, because it kind of goes from, it transitions from mid into the bases. And an important thing about this map, or sorry, about this part of the map, is that when you come in here, let's take a look at what's on the screen right now, because again, all these things about like making sure you can see where to go were like very front and center in my mind when redesigning the layout. You come in here and you immediately see two windows. One, the shutter is down. One, the shutter is open. and there's a gigantic arrow, pointing you down at this spot with a sign that says control point. But there is this door over here that also has a drop down. And you can also see that through this window, you can see your control point. So during the setup timer, or the setup time period, when people are just jumping around and making their sprays and, meleeing the wall and saying the funny voice lines and stuff, the whole time, this is visible. The A decal is somewhat visible. That's maybe not so great, but anyway, the control point is visible. You can see the enemy's control point if you go over here. So you kind of have to go out of your way, but for those of the players that are a little more attentive to the full environment, you can be like, okay, so there's the one we gotta stop the enemy from taking over there. But primarily, the whole focus of this room is meant to get you to look at that control point and that door, because this is where you should be going. These are also setup gates. Anything with this yellow metal and this great texture is a setup gate, because I needed some custom sized ones and I just wanted something as like a stand-in. So whatever. These are the ways to get onto the conveyors that everybody wants to ride. The arrows tell you which direction they're going. This one goes that way. This one goes back to your base. And the thing about this door here is that this is like in Two Bridge, you can also go and go down the enemy's lane to go and attack them rather than defending your own VIP and moving with your own push. I've just found that using drop downs here as well as here, they're actually really effective at being just enough of a barrier to mobility that a lot of players are just I don't want to bother doing this jump. In order to get up here, unless you're a scout, or an explosive jumping class, you kind of have to go up here and then jump over here. And it's just this is annoying. This is just kind of annoying to people, and they'd rather just be okay, I'm going to go this way, or I'm going to go down onto the conveyor, right? Conversely, I'll just switch gears for 1 second and talk about when you're attacking from this direction. Once the point has been capped, it's expected that sometimes people come through here, and having this one-way gate just means that this is more of a way to go this way. And then you'll notice there's this drop down we came down before, which is even harder to get up. There's actually I'm not even sure if it actually is possible to do this with any kind of jump. If you went maybe here and you're yeah, I don't know. But the point is that's goes straight to the enemy spawn. And I don't really want the attackers to go that way. So they're kind of forced to then go this way. But anyway, I digress. I just wanted to talk briefly about these drop downs and how they really, honestly, just help so much in just subtly influencing the flow of the teams. And I noticed that these were being used in both Two Bridge and Drizzle, I think. I'm not sure if there's a lot of drop downs on Chopper. There might be. But in any case, I found them very, very useful, because I did notice that the teams were sort of going the quote-unquote right way almost all the time. And another important setup gate is this one, this really big one, because I talked before about how at the beginning of the round, people would just go exploring, and they just they'd keep going and going and going, and they'd come this direction and what have you. And there's just at the beginning of the round during setup, there's no reason to be in here. Really, this is the spot where you can go to capture the escape zone. This is actually it's a flank for the attacking team, and you can even see there's a one-way gate here, which I'm going to come back to the one-way gate because there's some stuff to talk about with that too. And technically, I do need to block this entire conveyor because this conveyor does lead to mid, so you can't go in here. So I just decided to plunk down this enormous setup gate that's just no, you're not supposed to be here during setup. He's arrow, go that way, go away. And people, they didn't even need to understand because you can't go in there. But it was just a way of being this is not a spot for setup. Don't go this way. I don't really like doing that in a map. I would, prefer to let players explore as much as they want. But in this case, this is just such a problematic spot for people to go during setup that I decided, nah, screw it. I'm just going to completely block it off. And nobody complained about this specifically. No one had an issue about it. So
begins in 60 seconds.
I think it's fine. Okay, so you know what? I'll just cancel the setup timer because then we can actually see what it's like when when the round begins. Actually, wait. One more thing. There is this alternate entrance here. I remember I talked in the last version about how I liked the idea that like the conveyors actually went from like spawn all the way to the escape zone. Because there's a little fun new mechanic in this map, which I will bring up after I capture the point. And the reason why this is so close to spawn is because, of course, you're supposed to go this way control point, but I think it's pretty obvious that you can get on this conveyor and it will take you the same direction. It's just that, of course, during setup, you can't get into mid. So, yeah, the setup gate is here. And that's actually perfectly on time.
Mission begins in 10 seconds.
I don't even need to cancel the setup timer. Good job, me.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And there go the setup gates. Before I go charging in there, I'll say that, like, yeah, these ones, this is not a mistake. They do actually only go this far, because this is actually kind of helpful for, this is just a bit of an annoying jump to make, it's a little high. It's not so bad, but, like, at least I can then just lean on this as a ramp. It's just, I don't know, happy little accident with this setup gate that it also becomes a ramp. Okay, so we talked about all this layout. It's like why you don't go that way. You're supposed to go this way, and you come down here, and look at that. Like, you come in here, and it's just so unmistakable where you need to go, because the point is right there. In fact, even when you come out, you see like that grate there. It's like even if you take cover behind this wall, you can even see where the point is. I want to just direct people so blatantly towards this point, and it does pretty much no matter where you go. Even if you go this way, like you can't not see the point. Aside from like if you hide behind cover, obviously, but like no matter where you go on your side of mid, it's visible. There's no mistaking like where you should be. Yeah, so this is that's the drop down from the conveyor. This is the conveyor that leads all the way from spawn and goes all the way into the enemy base. And then we have these windows here that you can kind of take some cover behind. And of course the other side of mid looks exactly the same. This mid was pretty good. There were some notes about connectivity issues, and it's true, because like if you're a soldier or a demo, you can blast jump to get up here. You can also actually, if you get up here, there is a kind of a tricky double twin barrel jump for the pyro that you can use to get up here. But that's pretty risky, like every time I did it, I actually got wrecked pretty fast. And so there wasn't really that much engagement going on with mid. Very often, actually, both civilians would capture their points more or less simultaneously, which isn't really a bad thing, I don't think, but it does kind of mean that like the mid fight is kind of muted. And it does, I guess, make sort of a stressful decision for all the players, because like, okay, like both our civs capture the point. Should we just try to like blitz our way to the escape zone? Or and like, hope that we get there before them? And like that's not super fun. So I think I will address some issues. I'll like maybe make it a little more connected here. Like it's not quite such a treacherous journey to get from from here to here to here to here. Like I thought this would be kind of fun. I'm imagining like pyros and heavies like just emerging from behind these boxes and stuff, but it turns out players were not really comfortable doing that all that much. And they actually more preferred, if they wanted to attack the other team, to either go up this way. One second, I'll actually walk this. Come up this way into the enemy's transition room, because you actually get some cover and you can even see like where they are. You kind of attack them from behind, which again I don't think is a bad thing, but it does take the action away from mid a bit. So I'm probably gonna look at some ways to maybe add some more play space in between here without trying to sacrifice too much of the death pit and the conveyor focus. We will see how that goes. I'll see if I can come up with something creative for that. Okay, so yeah, let's capture the point, because there is something that happens when I capture the point that I'm going to talk about. Just standing on it here. There we go. And just before it becomes annoying, I'm going to. Oh wait a second. Int fire team round timer. Add time 600.
Time has
There.
passed.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you noticed, but you see those red signs there? Those appeared when I captured the point. I actually would prefer if I could get a model that has them like off, which oddly doesn't exist, like just as gray, because I'd like to almost have it be like you turn it on. Um, but they're meant to then like basically tell you you're supposed to go this way. However, this stupid conveyor is now blocking it because when I redesigned mid, I really liked these conveyors as the ones where you can go sort of harass the enemy team from above, and I am going to keep that because I think that's super cool and people were using it. But then I added it late because I like forgot about it, and then like I added them and I'm like, shit, it blocks the signs. Like right when you're on the cap, it blocks those signs. I might just need to like raise the ceiling and maybe put them a bit higher up or something. But that was kind of annoying. But it was like the day before the playtest, and I was like, "Oh, screw it! I'm not canceling the playtest over that." So, yeah. But you can see like these appear once you capture mid, so that way it tells you to go this way. And you have two choices. You can go through the transition room, which we talked about before, taking this route, and then you have this drop down here, which forbids you from going this way. And then you come down this way, or let's just no clip again. You can go this way, which I think was kind of more the preferred way. It's meant to be a flank, but you come to this room with a one-way gate, which I'm about to talk about. And I imagine this room is a sort of staging area because it comes over here, and then you've started to get a line of sight on the escape zone. These signs here are a bit odd because they're in the enemy base, but they're your team color. But the fact that they are these sort of, I guess they'd be like fluorescent in the real life lore. These like fluorescent signs that tell you where to go. Normally I'd have them turn off, but now they just appear. These will disappear if I get killed by the enemy team. And of course, the main way to go should be like across here to the conveyor, and then there's the escape zone, and you try to capture it. But you can also go in through this way, through this sort of, end of the line. Like this is where you go, and it's a high risk because you have a height advantage. But like once you get down there, you're either going through that hole in the ceiling, or you're coming out in a body bag, or maybe you're gonna be ground into dust. So yeah, this has like a nice little partitionary effect here, like this wall of oil drums, which by the way are like the reason why these drums are everywhere is because they're just placeholders. I didn't really care too much to pick out all the specific props I wanted. I just started plunking down these things everywhere. But like it gives the attacking team a way to kind of get some ground. You can peek out here, or you can even hide behind this here. You can come down here and try to attack from down here. But the enemy team, of course, has their own cover, and it creates a nice little battle where the action points that you have to actually get to, this car is just right in the middle of it. So it creates this nice little push pull I found where, the enemy team sort of controls the area over here, you control the area over here, and yeah, you fight over this. You might have noticed the grinder. That's a lot of fun. This one's spinning backwards because of a copy and paste error from the other side of the map. I'm not going to bother jumping into it. It does exactly what you think it does. And one last part of the layout to talk about is this conveyor, of course. And in fact, I'm going to go all the way back to our spawn to demonstrate this. And I haven't mentioned it yet, but you've probably noticed that there's smoke on it now. The smoke was meant to just be kind of like it's working in overdrive thing, because when you capture the point, your conveyor starts running a bit faster. And the point for this, or the reason for this, is that when you come out of spawn, you now have this sort of like express lane that takes you super fast to the enemy base. Right? And now I'm here. With the trade-off, at least in my mind, being that you're kind of in this narrow, dangerous hallway, and like even while I was playing a couple times, I came out here and there was a heavy standing right where I am now, and you just walked directly into his minigun barrel. I was a bit concerned that maybe you could get to the escape zone too quickly, and it would just be a steamroll every time, but no, that really didn't happen. Like the escape zone appears to be exactly where it needs to be, even with this express lane conveyor effect. I placed the relative distance of the point to the escape zone actually by sort of overlaying. I opened up 2Bridge in Hammer, and then I drew a brush from the point in Two Bridge to the escape zone, and I just rotated it so that it was like approximately the same distance, and then I just dropped it into this map, and that's how I got the space between them, and said, okay, I'll tweak it however I need to that fits the map, but like, yep, it seems to be fine exactly where it is. I actually use Two Bridge a lot to rescale this map, because I was having such scaling issues. I talked about last time in A4 that like the map was just so like unwieldy large that like players were just like, I mean, they were like atoms flying around and never actually striking each other, and it was just a mess. So like the mid of this map is designed to be like exactly the same size as Two Bridges mid. I also drew a polygon boundary approximately around the playable area of Two Bridge, and then just kept that in my map as a brush, which I would just move off to the corner, and then I would move it back onto my map, like underneath it, just so I'd have this sort of boundary to see, like, okay, I really shouldn't go too far beyond this on any side. Like, not as like a hard constraint, obviously, but just to keep me kind of like grounded in like, okay, this is a map which is approximately an appropriate size. And that worked really well. I think that was really helpful. Let's see. Let's just add some more time again. Okay, let's finally talk about this one-way gate. So this one-way gate, a lot of people told me I should get rid of it. I'm still not 100% sure if I should. I know it's kind of one of those things where it's like me looking at the crowd and saying, yes, you're all wrong. I'm not guaranteed to keep it, but it's just, I like the fact that you have this moment that you can go in as like sort of a VIP, and you're like, I mean, I guess there's a bit of a visibility problem. You can't see the escape zone here. What I imagine should happen is like you're coming through here, and it's like this is a sort of like, whoa, okay, hang on, where's my team? And then you might be like, okay, here they come, here they come, here they come. Okay, now let's push. Did this happen during the playtest? A bit, like not that much, not as much as I hoped. I really wonder if like through more playing of the map and as people sort of learn the quote unquote optimal meta, that like it might start to be more like the one-way gates on, say, Dust Bowl, where it's just kind of a place where players have learned that like this is a good spot for us to just sort of, ball up, like get into a nice big cluster that we can make a coordinated attack with. But I didn't see much of it. I'm really hesitant to remove it. I feel like it is serving some kind of a purpose. I also just kind of like the fact that having this one wicket, it's not just for the team that's attacking, it's also to make the attacking team coming out of their base. So if I were on blue, it's just to kind of make you go through this room. And if you really want to go attack the enemy point, you go through this here. Like I just feel like if I let the defending team, like if I let the team from this side go this way, I'm back to this problem of like the team scattering too much. I really think that it's serving a purpose in just sort of coordinating people to go this way. So I'm really not convinced that this gate should go away. I think it was just personally people maybe getting a bit annoyed because they'd go this way and they'd be like, oh, one-way gate, this is annoying. Oh, I have to go back here. But I just feel like as you learn the map, I think that will go away. I don't know. This is why I said it's contentious. Like this is a contentious one-way gate. We'll see how it goes. I've put a poll in our Discord in the map thread about like what should be done with it. That poll is not going to dictate exactly what happens. It's just because I would like to get maybe like start a bit of a discussion about it. But yeah, this one-way gate is rather contentious. And by contentious, I mean like, the community doesn't like it, but I think it's important. So, but I'm the mapper, so I know how I want the map to be playing, and I feel like it is serving a purpose that may not be immediately obvious to people, but I think it's doing its job pretty well. But we shall see. Maybe it will eventually be taken out or modified somehow. Okay, that's enough about the one-way gate. So what else? I have some notes here this time, actually, to try to keep me on track. One-way gates are contentious. Once again, yeah. I guess, okay, one last point about these one-way gates is that like it leads me back to this thing which I feel like it continuously gets reaffirmed in my head every time. Like, teamwork or team coordination in TF2 was like almost 100% an illusion. And like the map is just doing so much heavy lifting and like in just like kind of forcing players to coordinate themselves. My journey through this alpha process has been just reinforcing that over and over again. And I feel like the one-way gate here is just such a manifestation of that, honestly. Okay, so one thing about the gameplay that was also interesting is that like a lot of people were getting into the enemy base through these conveyors at, let's say, quote unquote inappropriate times, like before you own your point or before your team has captured the point and whatever. People would often just ride these conveyors and like either on purpose or sometimes just by accident, because like they're fighting like bang bang bang, boom boom boom, and then they're like on here, and then they just kind of get sucked into here and they're like, oh okay, what the fuck, I'm here now, right? Like, and they're just in the enemy base. And so there's a lot of like orphaned players in the enemy base, and it's definitely caused by this conveyor. I'm not really sure what to do about this, and I'm not even really sure if I should do anything about it, because it was another one of these things that, like, while I would say that, like, yep, that's a problem, nobody really seemed to complain about it explicitly. Like, nobody brought it up as an issue. Even people in the enemy base didn't seem that annoyed. I even saw at one point an engineer build a sentry gun right here, like a level 3 sentry gun right here in the enemy base, and like nobody pointed to that as evidence that like, oh, this is a big problem with the layout, and it's easy to build a sentry in the enemy base. And I think it's just because like this is kind of it's a cheeky sentry spot, you know, like you'll catch a guy off guard coming around this corner, but like it's not really affecting the main route for the enemy team to get to the actual combat zone, right? You can just ignore that and just go this way. And if anything, it's almost like now the enemy team is just down an engineer. I guess a really good spy could probably torment the enemy team, or like a scout or something. But I don't know. I also felt like it was a bit of a way that it seemed to be breaking up the sort of stalematey nature of a symmetric game mode, right? Like it being able to like get this wide flank to the enemy base. I mean, sure, like spawn camping might be an issue, but like I don't know. Again, it didn't seem like people were complaining that much about it, surprisingly. So I don't feel like I should do that much about it. Let's add some more time because I'm just yapping.
Time has been added.
Let's see. Oh, and yeah, one last thing about that. Like, it's because, yeah, if you're alone over here, you're like, haha, I've made it to the enemy base. I will now go harass there's like 6 enemies. Right? Like, you're like, it's actually such a high risk thing to do. And if like 1 or 2 players do it, they're probably just going to get destroyed by all these full health enemies with the respawn cabinet right behind them and probably no backup coming. You know, like they're not they're not going to have a good time. They're not going to have an easy time when they're over here. So maybe that's another reason why it wasn't so disruptive to the map flow. Let's see. Other gameplays. It's confusing what base you're entering and exiting and what conveyor. You know, like when you're fighting in mid and there's explosions and shooting on every direction. It's like when you're in here, it is true that like, what base am I in right now? Okay, there's some red over there maybe, right? And it's like, which direction do you go and like what point do you jump onto? Especially if you're a civ and you sort of just maybe took refuge quickly here and you've gone towards the enemy base. And even if you get into this little interchange spot, you come back here and you're like, do I go this way? And you may think that like, yeah, but the red point. I mean, personally, one thing that I've always thought about VIP race, which is a sort of an issue which I'm not sure if it's even solvable, is that like I sometimes get really confused about like the color of the hologram and the team and the letter and the color of the team, and I'm like, wait, which one am I supposed to be capping? Like, maybe I'm just a brainlet, but like I actually get confused a lot about that on VIPR, and I think also a lot of players do, and that's why in my previous maps, like if you don't funnel the team directly to the point they're supposed to go to, they just end up at the wrong point because they just see a hologram and a letter on the wall, and they're like, I guess I need to go there. So I guess like these conveyors, it needs to be a lot easier, or a lot more clear what team sort of you're going into, even though it's mid. Like I guess like what side of mid you're going into. I saw some people getting a bit disoriented with that during the playtest. Oh yeah, and I did notice that players kind of wanted to jump from here into the transition room. They kind of didn't want to have to go, because for one, a lot of them I don't think realized that you can actually do a U-turn here and go back into mid. I should probably have a sign here that just says, like, I don't know, control point this way, escape zone that way. So at least that way they can think like, oh, whoop, getting off here, and then like turn around. But also it seemed like a lot of players were just sort of like jumping, and they wanted to get up here. So I'll probably just add that because, yeah, it is kind of annoying that like it's like when you miss your exit on the highway, you know, like you're like, oh shit, I gotta go like all the way to the next exit and then turn around, and like, I'm not even really where I want to be, and it's annoying. So I'll probably add a means to get out of here to assist with that. Okay, so I think that's like about it for gameplay, honestly. I think I've said everything that I needed to say about that. So I'll bring up a couple of technical problems. For one, this smoke particle is actually I'm kind of seeing it now. I think it's because there's a shader effect, and that thing just destroyed the performance on lower machines. Like some people said during the playtest, like this is like not as a joke. It was literally unplayable. Like it was literally unplayable. Thankfully, Sandvich told me, another member of our community, Sandvich, advised me before the release to set a checkbox on the particle effects here as it's something like is weather effect, because that way at least I could tell people during the playtest, if you're having problems, turn off weather effects in your options, and that solved the problem for pretty much everyone. Of course, you don't want to have people disable weather effects just for one map, but it was at least a way to sort of salvage the playtest. So that was nice, and I'll come up with a better method for this. I think what I'll do is I'll have some like lights, and it'll be like kind of a marquee, you know, like ding 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 ding, and like the rate at which it, you know, dinks will indicate its speed. I thought the smoke thing was cool because it was almost just like when you capture the point, you've like turned the factory into overdrive. You know, it's like I was imagining lots of machinery around the area too, and like it will like start running faster. It also gives like a bit of a I don't know, a bit of a like texture to the lore, or like a bit of a, I don't know, believability or immersion maybe to the lore of the map. What little there will be is that, like, you know, you're turning on this side of the factory to go way faster before you escape. I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool, but clearly the smoke is a problem. It has to go. It's just way too unperformant. Let's see what else. Oh, the conveyor belts diagonal sections. So, there is a reason why these conveyor tunnels are exactly as wide as they are. It's because I want them to be as thin as possible, but it's important that you're able to do this. You see, I'm able to walk past the boxes because, one, it means you don't get stuck in the walls by being pushed around by the boxes, and two, it allows you to just kind of escape the wrong way of the conveyor if you want to. See, I can get out this way, right? However, some of the playtesters will have noticed that you cannot do this here. See? Okay, hang on. I actually can't walk backwards on it because it's in overdrive mode. So, okay, let's just go over here then. You can't do it here. See? It pushes you back. Why? Because in the source engine, your player collision box for world geometry is it's a rectangular prism. Like it's a square that is extruded vertically to the height of your player model, and that box is always oriented along the axes, the XY axes, or maybe it's the XZ. I can't remember if Z is up or Y is up in the source engine, but anyway, basically, even if you turn around, your player collision box is always oriented in the exact same direction as these squares below me. And what that means is that when you're facing in a diagonal direction, you're actually a little bit wider in that direction. And so you get pushed around by these boxes like this. So I need to make the diagonal tunnels. Thank you, announcer. I need to make these tunnels a little bit wider because I don't like the fact that you just can't get through here the same way you can get through all the other tunnels. That's annoying and not consistent and just not good. Let's add some more time
has been added.
because I got way more mapping yapping to do. Okay, so that's something that needs to be fixed. Diagonal conveyor hallways, smoke particles, catastrophic. Yeah, right. There is still some glitchiness with getting stuck in walls because man, it wouldn't be one of my maps if there weren't a ton of players getting stuck and stuff. So there was a lot of care taken already just from past versions of this map and from Dom Carts to like stop players from getting stuck. And one of the ways that I do this is there is a teeny tiny little push trigger right here and right up there for that one, and basically all over the map. And the idea is that if you're standing on a box, it does this. Boop. See, it knocks me off. And that's typically fine. Players don't really like. Normally, what would actually happen in the Source engine is I would just get stuck in this wall or in this floor, and that's no good. But that push trigger is just enough to kind of like knock you off. Now it's true that like if you kind of walk into it like this, you get a bit of. Actually, did I even trigger it? Like, if you kind of jump into it, oh, didn't actually do it that time. Or maybe it is just it's so subtle that like you don't even really notice it. Because like technically, if I walk into it, it would push me. But it's good enough to make you like when you're in a box. Oh come on. When you're on a box, it just pushes you off, in a way that feels rather natural. I mean, it should happen up here too. Can I stand on these? Oh my god. Okay, let's go to the slower one. It's actually a little tricky to get on these things. If I were standing on this one, same thing will happen here. It should knock me off. Doink, doink, doink. There. Yeah. And that's pretty good. However, one thing I realized, it's very rare, but it can happen that if you get stuck between the box, not on top of it, but between it and that little push trigger, the push trigger doesn't work, and you just go right into the wall. I wonder if I can time this. Like, oh my god. I wonder if I can just. Oh my god, it's actually really hard to do, but I did see it a couple times happen during the playtest. Oh my god. Maybe if I just un-no-clip myself at like the right moment. Okay, and now there we go. Yeah, this happens. Nope, and I'm stuck in the box. That's obviously no good. I gotta figure out a way to fix this. This is gonna be tricky, because yeah, I think what I might do is, God, I hate doing this, but like I might put like a teleport trigger just behind the push trigger, which will maybe just sort of like go like pop, like just push you down there. I hate doing that. That's immersion breaking. That's annoying, but like I really don't know how else I can fix that. The problem is you might think that like why don't you make it so like the box breaks automatically? Because you'll be in the wall already, is the thing. You'll clip into the wall before the box, I think. And so you'll still be stuck in the box, and that's not as bad, but or well, no, sorry, destroy the box. You wouldn't be stuck in the box if you destroy the box. You'll still be stuck in the wall, is what will happen. You'll break the box, but you'll be stuck in the wall. And so there's going to need to be a teleport trigger here. I'm hoping maybe it won't quite be so so immersion breaking if like, you know, it's just from there to there. It shouldn't be too bad. But I think I don't really know of any other way that I can fix that. So I'll just have to live with that one. And I guess it's probably the same for all of them. Oops, I hit the medic button. This one, I think, would probably have the same problem. I'm not going to try and test it here. The thing is that if that happens here, you're going to go into the kill trigger in like 1 second. So like while you'd rather not see people getting stuck in walls, you're not going to see them for long because they're going to be dead very quickly. So whatever. Okay. I think that is it for gameplay and technical stuff. And I did just want to talk a little bit about maybe the upcoming art pass, because I think at this point I'm ready to put this thing into beta. I think the next version is going to be beta 1, because I'm just going to be making some the main layout is pretty much stable now. And I recently got some advice from Wa, the art lead for TF2C, because like I've said it before in these devlogs that like I'm really actually like my goal here is to try and get a map into TF2C, like in the official map pool. Maybe not necessarily this map, but like long term, I'm trying to get something in there just as a personal goal of mine. And of course, my first map, Dom Carts, was not sort of like quote unquote accepted into the map pool. I had heard some reasons why, just kind of through the grapevine, that like maybe the carts were a little bit too glitchy, and there were like concerns about the art style and stuff like that. And like that's fine, like I'm not like gonna contest that or whatever. Like those guys they're more professional than I am, and like I trust, like when they say it's just not up to the standard, it's like yeah, okay, I believe them. But I did ask Wah, like, could you tell me like why it's not up to standard? Because like I want to improve, I want to get better, I want to get a map into the map pool. Like what did I do wrong? Because I looked at it, and at my level of understanding, it seemed like everything was generally fine, aside from like maybe some amateurish brushwork and prop placement here and there. And yeah, he gave me some really awesome feedback. Not like crazy long, detailed or anything, like, but like really concise, clear stuff. And I'm not going to go into Dom Carts right now and talk about it. Like, I'm not just going to regurgitate everything he said. But there's just a lot of stuff about like lighting and color palette choice and stuff. And he kind of pointed out how Dom Carts doesn't really have any sort of lighting and color coordination. It's like your eye is kind of drawn to just, there's a lot of like random colors and props, and the brightness is, it's very consistent everywhere for the most part. It doesn't draw your eye towards important gameplay areas, stuff like that. And it was really cool because this was stuff that like I have never really considered while mapping, because I think I just never really kind of got to the level where that sort of mattered. Hang on, I'm just going to add some time before
has been added.
I get interrupted by the announcer lady. And yeah, like I see what he means now, and so like I'm gonna take that into account while I'm art passing this map. I'm gonna try to actually put these ideas into practice, because it's true. Like I feel pretty comfortable making brushwork, placing props. I still struggle with scale sometimes in the alpha versions, but like I think I've kind of got a handle on some of these fundamentals now, and so I want to improve these more advanced skills, like actually selecting a color palette and being a lot more mindful about texture choice and lighting levels and direction and stuff like that. I will admit, it's like I will probably have to abandon my initial idea of the art pass for this map a bit, because I wanted to have this sort of I talked about it before. Like I wanted to have this like deep, dark, sort of almost impossibly large factory where it's like you're sort of lost in this maze of conveyors and cogwheels and pulsating machinery and pistons and steam coming out of vents and stuff. But like that's a little bit too fantastical, maybe. There is this manga called I don't like. I've heard people call it Blom, but like I want to call it Blame, but like I don't actually know how to pronounce it. So weebs, feel free to make fun of me for mispronouncing that. But I think it's Blom. But anyway, it's I don't really read a lot of manga. I don't really watch a lot of anime, but like this one I did read because the art in it is like really cool, and it's about like a guy, like sort of anime ninja protagonist guy, and like a cyborg lady, and they're like in a world where there is no natural features at all. It's like everything. It's like it's a structure that is so impossibly large that like it's I haven't read all of it, but like it's kind of presented to be as though it's like the size of the entire planet, like the entire planet Earth. And it's like there's tribes of people that like live in different areas of it, and like there are some areas where it's like all catwalks, and there's some areas where there's actually very tall hallways with pillars, and there's like locked doors that people don't know how to access, and there's like trade routes in between like civilizations in this impossibly large factory. Now I wasn't going to go quite for that, but I was a bit inspired by that. I wanted it to just be like fully artificial hellscape that you are, again, that's why we had this whole idea of escaping into the light. It's like you are getting out of this awful, awful place. But that is rather divergent from, let's say, pure TF2 aesthetics. And like TF2C is, I think, I don't want to speak for the team, but like I think it's accurate to say that like it part of its like principle, like core development principles, is that like it's a return to the sort of original TF2 aesthetic, which is not what I described, right? Like I might be able to do something like that in a theme which is visually consistent, but like the idea of having this impossibly large fantasy factory doesn't really fit. And so I need to readjust. And that was like a bit of a bummer to me when I kind of realized this, because I was like, oh man, like I was really looking forward to doing this. But yeah, and I think a reason for this is because, like, of course, with mapping, like I've just, even with Dom carts, like I didn't really even think about the theme before I started the map. I just sort of projected onto it later, because to me I was always just like, I want to make the map that I want to make. I want to have it have the layout that I want to have, and I'm just gonna pick the theme, whatever looks cool, and da-da-da. And it's fun, and like there's nothing wrong with mapping like that. But I think maybe it belongs a little bit more in the world of uh, maybe like Quake and Unreal Tournament. Actually, I really love Unreal Tournament level design. I never did Unreal Tournament level design, but like just I love that game is just like the mappers just basically had almost no constraints at all, like thematic constraints. It was like, okay, like the first level is like a gothic castle, another one is a metal refinery, another one is a pirate ship, another one is like a fucking intergalactic spaceship like hurtling through space at light speed, like, and then like there's just this like tacked on plot that's like, oh, it's a tournament in the far future and these are all spectacular arenas. It's like, because that was just their sort of way they were developing, right? They were so much about these fantastical arenas designed to wow you with like every single aesthetic. And I mean, part of that just is really appealing to me, because it's like, no rules, buddy. Just as long as it's reasonably coherent, like as long as it looks like something coherent, go for it. But TF2C is not like that, and I really like TF2C as a game. And if I want to also get better at mapping, I realized that like, okay, like I need to learn how to work under constraints, because like, yeah, like, to be good at something doesn't just mean it's because you get to do whatever you want all the time. Like a really good chef, at least in my opinion, is not just a chef that knows how to make beef Wellington and cordon bleu and like all these super fancy meals that like, someone else just gets all the groceries for them, and they have access to the full kitchen with everything they need. Like, in my opinion, that's not really being good at cooking. Being good at cooking is being able to like, work in a subpar kitchen, and you don't have as much access to ingredients and still make something great. So I'm trying to like rise to the challenge here and be like, okay, you need to make a map now that is going to be consistent with the principles of another team. Like you need to like do it the way that you don't get to pick everything about it. And so this is kind of I'm trying to think about it in those terms now. Just as a way of also growing as a mapper myself, even though I don't plan to do this professionally. I think it's kind of way too late to realistically do that, but yeah, I want to get better at it, and this is going to be a way that I'm going to look at this as a way of getting better, of being able to work under constraints that I don't personally impose on myself. And I've been yapping so long again, I need to add some more time.
Time has been added.
There we go. So yeah, I Wall also advised that I go get some reference images and work from those, which I've never done before, and that's also another skill that I feel like you need to learn as a mapper, right? It's like, especially if you're going to be mapping for something which requires some level of fidelity to a real world location. And I'm in a little bit of trouble here, because since I did just design this whole layout how I wanted to, I now need to go get reference images and project them onto what I already have, because I'm not redesigning this. I'm not going to do it. So that's going to be a challenge. I'm going to have an uphill battle ahead of me for that. But okay, it was a misstep. For my next map, I will, because I do intend to keep mapping after this, regardless if this map actually makes it into the TF2C map pool or not. Like, I'm not done after this. I'll have to now have this additional challenge of trying to take real world imagery and projecting it in here in a way that is coherent. Because I feel like one thing that's going to be hard about this, because it's an interior environment, it's going to be hard to do an asymmetrical art pass, which I don't really know if that's considered to be a criteria for like if it'll be accepted into the TF2C map pool or not. I don't really know if there's any strict policy on that. I doubt there is, but like, hey, maybe there is. But like, it's going to be tricky to do that because you would expect a factory like this to have a consistent symmetrical design on both sides. It makes it harder to justify like why red sort of quote unquote owns one side and blue owns the other. And I think I will resolve that by making it not so much like there's a spy tech base in each one, but rather both teams have arrived at the factory. You know, and like one side of the factory will just have like maybe red trim and highlights, and one will be blue trim and highlights. Maybe sort of justified by the idea that like the factory, a lot of factories will sort of have like, you know, zoning. It's like zone A, zone B, you know, and it's like maybe it can be justified by the fact that they're sort of color coding by zone. I don't know. I have to think about this a bit. I could also try and do something like half the factory is being renovated, and so it's being like painted another color. I'm not really sure, but I get the feeling that there's probably not going to be an asymmetrical art pass here, simply because, or like it'll be mostly asymmetrical. Like maybe some prop placement will be different and stuff like that, but I think it's going to be mostly symmetrical just by the nature of like this is a large standardized building and it's going to need to kind of stay that way. Because, you know, just putting like blue stripes on the walls and stuff like that, that's like, I think what people sort of call modern TF2 design, which is a sort of a thing that people got kind of tired of. And if I understand correctly, is like one of the things that sort of led to this desire to have more of this return to aesthetic purity in TF2C. So I don't want to go down that route, but I feel like I'm going to be straying dangerously close to it. And so I'm going to try to keep that in mind while I'm art passing. At one point, I actually thought about maybe I would change this to like a package sorting depot, because I found some interesting pictures online of like old parcel sorting depots, like a Sears depot in like the 1960s and 70s. And I was like, okay, well that maybe justifies the boxes, but something about it just seemed lame. I was like, I wanted to stay a factory, so no, instead I just decided, okay, I'm gonna just try to recover from my misstep as best I can. I'll get some real world reference images of factories, and I'll try to save this. Because like I've also always believed that like being good at something, especially in a creative process, it isn't just about like making a great thing from start to finish at every step. It's like also being good at being able to recover from past mistakes. And so I'm going to try to recover from this mistake of not thinking too much about the theme and sort of taking a shortcut past collecting reference photos. And I'll see if I can patch this up retroactively as best I can. And we'll see how that plays out. Is there anything else left that I wanted to talk about here? I think I covered everything. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So other than to say that like, yep, I've got some challenges ahead of me, but I am also very, very happy that this last playtest went so well. There's obviously a few things that need some adjustment, but like after the completely disastrous A4 and the sort of lackluster A2 and A3, I'm feeling good about this. I'm feeling optimistic. I think I'm going to be able to come up with something good, and I hope I'll be able to meet my goal. And if I don't, I will just start again, because I've got more ideas for maps. And I'm excited to jump on them regardless of how this one goes. So I think this has been my longest devlog yet. This is almost 55 minutes at this point. So thanks to everyone who is just sitting there listening to me yap and can tolerate this for like an entire hour. And yeah, happy TF2, happy mapping, and see you in the next one.